Action. I had mentioned the resemblance to Chuck Norris. One thing that made me very proud, I wrote Chuck Norris a few years ago, and I said, you know, Chuck, I used to be told that I resembled you, and that was always a great honor. And I wrote the letter. On letterhead, it had a picture of Willie Nelson and me. And it was one of the pictures where I resembled Chuck. And I said, you know, I know you're also good friends with Randy Travis, and I co-wrote Randy's first recording. And I said, Randy is one heck of a great guy, one of the nicest guys. And I even put a few little jokes in there, a couple of Chuck Norris jokes. I said, I hope you get this letter. I hope you're not at your vacation house on the sun. And to my surprise, he wrote back, and he said, hi, Bob. You did look a lot like me in '81, and you still look great. Keep it up. You're right. Randy Travis is one heck of a great guy. He and I became friends through the years, and I pray that he will overcome his latest problems. Willie was going to do a part on an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, but he chickened out at the last minute. But I really like him. Anyway, thanks for writing. All the best, Chuck Norris. Now, when Chuck tells you you still look great, don't argue with him. But I wrote to Richard Nixon. In 1978, I had read a book called Nixon versus Nixon, which was very cruel to him, made him look like an extreme mentally ill monster. And I thought, you know, he did some good, so I wrote, Dear Mr. Nixon, it should have been Dear Mr. President. Dear Mr. Nixon, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate the many wonderful accomplishments you made as president. I sincerely believe that the passing of time will prove that you were one of America's greatest presidents. Again, thank you. Warmest wishes, Bob Bigger, WGNC Radio. 2 weeks later, I showed up for work, and there was a letter in the window next to the secretary's desk. No stamp on it. It had, a printed signature, Richard Nixon. I read it. Dear Mr. Bigger. The top of the letterhead was La Casa Pacifica. Dear Mr. Bigger, this is just a note to let you know how deeply I appreciated your very kind and thoughtful letter of June 27th. Mrs. Nixon joins me in sending you our very best wishes. Sincerely, Richard Nixon, signature. And I wrote to Pat Boone, and he wrote back, and he said, Dear Bob, I usually don't have time to respond, but yours was engaging. And he said, love the picture of you and Willie. And he said, you're right. I wish that Elvis was in as good a shape as I am. And but it was just a very nice letter from Pat Boone. I wrote to David Berkowitz. See, my half-brother, been a very violent, schizophrenic alcoholic, died at age 31. And I wrote to David Berkowitz because he has a prison ministry. The Son of Sam is who I'm talking about, the notorious serial killer from 1977. He wrote back a nice typewritten and signed letter about, I'm so sorry about your half-brother dying in prison, and I'm sorry that he didn't get the help he needed. And just a very nice little letter, and it was signed David Berkowitz. And that was the Son of Sam. Various other letters. One of the most intriguing, there is a man named James Files, F-I-L-E-S, who has confessed, because he was outed, to being the grassy old gunman who shot and killed John Fitzgerald Kennedy November 22nd, 1963, from the grassy knoll in Dallas, Texas. And I had ordered and bought and donated to the library a book about him called Files on JFK. James was definitely a hitman for the CIA Mafia. So I wrote him a long letter. He's a Willie Nelson fan. So I sent him a number of pictures of Willie Nelson and me. And I think that got his attention, and some other celebrities. I wrote him a long letter, and he wrote me back a 3-page handwritten letter thanking me and telling me that please don't tell anyone I wrote you. I don't write anyone anymore, including my girlfriend. He said, I get lots of mail, and there are about 30 to 60 questions about Dallas. I no longer give interviews. The last interview I gave was 2003. The man who was helping him, who was interviewing him, and was supposed to have had Kennedy's body exhumed to test for mercury in the skull, because James said that he had used an exploding mercury bullet. But is he the one? I don't know. I think that's what keeps it such an addictive interest, an obsession, because you think you got it figured out, who did it and why, and then something else comes along that sounds more plausible, more logical, more likely. But James Files, it was a very, very interesting book and a very interesting letter that I got from him. And he said, you have lived a very interesting life, a fascinating life, my friend. And he was scheduled to be released from the penitentiary in Danville, Illinois, in May 8th of 2016, I think. I don't know if he was, but I know that it's a very, very, very convincing story. He said Lee Harvey Oswald did not shoot anybody, did not kill anyone. His job was to infiltrate the CIA and the FBI for information. He was a patsy, he said, just like he blurted out at Dallas Police Headquarters on that tragic, infamous day in 1963. But if Files is telling the truth, and several FBI agents, one named Zach Shelton, says he is the most credible of all the confessors to the assassination. So, if that's true, then I have a written letter to me personally from the man who changed history in the time it took to pull a trigger. So I don't know, but that was a very interesting letter that I got. And I love writing to see who will respond and who won't, and what they say. A lot of people don't write back, some do. So I just think it's quite an interesting little hobby. I would like to have the track record that an excellent journalist for the Gaston Gazette and Shelby Star has, Wade Allen. He has met every celebrity that you can imagine, every one of them. He's met Donald Trump, picture with him. Met Betty White, close friends with Phyllis Diller, visited Phyllis Diller at her home, and sat beside her playing the piano. That was used, I think, on our TV show. And I would like to have that track record. Because, I mean, I always enjoyed getting my photo with celebrities rather than getting just autographs. But Wade has met them all. And those were just a few of the letters to which I have gotten responses. Incidentally, I checked the return address on the envelope of Chuck Norris's handwritten letter, and it was a UPS store in Fort Worth, Texas. So I don't know if he lives in a UPS store, I don't know. But fascinating and very interesting. And I want to continue writing these letters. I will say this, one of the most touching that I got in a long time. The Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida, in which I think around 50 people or more were shot and killed, injured, on a very tragic night as patrons were visiting the nightclub. And I wrote them, sent them just a little simple, compassionate sympathy card. And I got a response that said Pulse, and it was from the owner of Pulse, and she just said, "Your words are everything. You don't know how much we appreciate, you're taking time to send that expression of compassion and love." So all these things are, things that you cherish and keep. So that's, I don't know who I'll write next, but I will share real quickly. Here it is. A couple of little things here. Well, actually just one. I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman here. And is this on the screen there? Eric Trump, I think is the maybe third child, second son, something like that, of President Trump. And he was campaigning in Gastonia, North Carolina with his very, very beautiful wife, Laura, who is from Wilmington, North Carolina, taller than I am. I got to meet her, and here, of course, I'm standing with him. He was campaigning for his father in October of 2016, and two friends and I went. I had a t-shirt made with this picture on it, and I have it captioned, "Eric, what shall I wear to the White House?" Now I'm still waiting for that invitation. It'll come, and let's make St. Patrick's Day great again. There I am in my best Trump imitation there. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope to continue writing the letters, and whenever possible, I hope to keep getting photographs with these celebrities. Had I had a smartphone back in 1976, and all through the years, I would have been able to get some very, very impressive and very excellent motion pictures interviewing these people. And I don't know if Willie would have allowed the camera to be running during our wacky-backy smoking session, but he might have. Willie's a pretty open-minded guy. And he wasn't a bit selfish with that joint. But I guess that'll do her for now.